How's it going, Descendants? Today we're going to be talking about my Jaybird bossing build. Now first off, Jaybird's a jack of all trades, so he's a master of none, but he does everything very well. He's going to be using weapon damage and skill damage. He's also a non-attribute type, so he's not going to have any huge advantage over any Colossus, but he can do all the Colossuses very well and easy. So, my bossing build is going to be very similar to my mobbing build. The only big difference is we're going to be using skill simplification and maximize skill. Now, you're probably wondering about that huge skill cooldown increase and why I would use that over anything else, but I'll explain a little bit later in the damage numbers. So first off, we're going to be using attack and compulsion, so we have 2 attack turrets to do more damage. We're going to be using 2 HP mods, so our turrets survive and we survive. We're going to be going for a non-crit build, so we're going to be using 2 amp mods, non-attribute and dimension, and then our 2 other damage mods. We're going to be using 3 cooldown mods, nimble fingers, MP conversion, and multi-talented. We're also going to be using skill expansion for that extra range. Also, when it comes to a lot of bosses, you may want to switch out a couple mods to match the situation. For example, if you're fighting a boss that's only going to be around for 10 seconds, you probably won't need as much HP, so you can switch those out for something like shot focus or anything else just to improve the build during that time. For the reactor, we're going to be using non-attribute and dimension, and substats we're going to be using dimension and colossus damage. For the weapon that you're going to want hand cannon weapon group. The reason is for the Peacemaker. The damage that you get from the Peacemaker is going to be really needed when it comes to the bossing. For components, you can either max out your HP, which you should only do if you're facing a really hard, difficult boss, or if you're facing a lower tier boss, I would go with the Slayer set just so you can do more damage. One of my main weapons is the Smithereens. When you hit an enemy with all of the bullets, you get 100% crit chance, and you get an increase in crit damage. You also get an increase in the shell count. For the substats, I use crit damage, colossus damage, firearm attack, and weak point damage. For the weapon cores, I mainly just go for colossus, and the rest doesn't really matter too much. For the mods, I use action and reaction and rifling reinforcement for firearm attacks. I use better concentration and concentration priority for crit damage. I use a targeted vulnerability for weak point damage. I use shell up for increased shell capacity. I use Real Life Fighter for an increase in the firearm attack damage. For every stack it gets 10% and it goes up to 10 stacks. When you fire your shotgun, the amount of shells that it fires, it will pretty much max out the stacks right away. As for these blank slots, I use these slots to slide in whatever I need. For example, if I'm going for electric damage, I might put in electric enhancement, electric priority, and then I can either put more weak point if I want that, or if I need the gun to fire faster, just use fire rate up. But if you just need your gun to do more damage, you might want to go with the weak point, but honestly, it's truly up to you. Python is also another really good weapon when it comes to Jayber. On hitting a weak point, you inflict a debuff to the enemy called Prey. This debuff will lower its non-attribute resist, so basically increasing your turret's damage. For its substats, I use Colossus damage, weak point damage, firearm attack, and toxic attack. For the weapon core, the main ones are the rounds per magazine, so you can keep on firing. I also use Colossus damage and toxic damage, but I might switch that to Colossic damage, considering I use Python on all of the bosses. So toxic isn't very needed. I may update this build, but for right now I have rifling reinforcement and action and reaction for the firearm attack. I have weak point sight for weak point damage, fire rate up for increased fire rate, real life fighter for more damage. I have expand weapon charge and maximize weight balance for an increased magazine size. I have charge amplification for just more firearm attack. This is going to pretty much take away our crit damage, but we aren't going to worry about crit with this gun. And then I have aiming for increased weapon damage. An important thing to note about the increased magazine is that this will affect your third ability, your multi-purpose gun, and it will give it more ammo, so these are very important. For the empty slot, I have this empty to show that I just can place any elemental mod in there. For example, if I need chill enhancement, I can put it in there. Whatever I need. I don't just focus on toxic, since I do use this gun on multiple bosses, considering it buffs my turret damage. Now I'm going to show you how to set up your turrets when you are fighting a Colossus, because there is a method to it and it can be a little bit hard to get down sometimes. So since you have an increase in cooldown, you need to time out your turret placement to set everything up. We're also going to be utilizing the damage buff from Multi-Talented, so it's going to be a little bit confusing, but at the end of the video I'll have some boss battles kind of showing the setup also. But it goes as follows. Pretty much once you spawn in, you'll place down a turret, and then when your cooldown buff is almost done, you summon a second turret, and at this point you're just running to the boss. Now when the turrets are almost done cooling down, you're going to want to activate your fourth skill and then place the turret really fast and try to get both turrets out with the buff. It's very hard to do, so sometimes the damage won't be max. For example, I didn't actually hit the max damage that I could with this placement. Right now I'm on my laptop, so things are kind of a little bit wonky and slow. It's much easier on my Xbox, but as you can see, the damage numbers are there. But as far as the max damage, if I would have placed down the one turret fully correctly, it would have been up to 131,000. Now if you're also curious, if we would switch out maximize skill with power increase and skill simp for maximize power, the damage, well, the setup would be pretty much the same, but the damage numbers would, the max damage that you could hit per tick would only go up to 122k, which with this setup right here, the max is 131k. And then let's say you wanted to take a different route and just use power increase. With power increase, you won't have that negative effect in cooldown, and you will be able to get more stacks of Peacemaker, but the max ticks that you'll be able to get with this setup is only 122k. So it's kind of up to you on how you want to go about it. If you are finding that you are constantly needing to summon your turrets again, and you're not just placing them down and keeping them down. Let's say they keep on getting destroyed for some reason, or let's say a boss is moving around. Maybe you're in a team and the boss is getting aggroed to like other teammates, and so it's moving away from your turrets, and you do need to summon your turrets multiple times. You may want to go with power increase just for so you don't have that huge cooldown increase, but you will take a pretty big damage reduction from this. But honestly, it's up to you and how you feel comfortable with Jaybird. But as for me and the build that I have, for most bosses, I tend to summon the turrets in the middle and then keep the turrets there the whole time, keep them alive, and keep the boss aggroed to either the turrets or me, and I try to lead the boss into the turrets. But for different Colossus battles, it's not going to work out as simple as that. And there's actually one Colossus battle that is that this build definitely won't work for, and that's Deathstalker. But Deathstalker, I may do a totally different video on Deathstalker, considering you do need to look into shields, and with how much she moves around, it causes a good bit of problems. Deathstalker is probably the worst activity for Jaybird, but I may make a video on Deathstalker here in the future. When it comes to the seasonal perks, the main ones are just the weapon focus rounds. Whatever boss you're going against, go with whatever element you need. That's going to be the main one. You also do get a skill power boost from this, but considering you aren't going to be like utilizing this very much, it's going to be a very small bump in damage, but it still is something. As for the rest of the video, I have some clips of me facing down some bosses, just to show you guys how I go about fighting those bosses. At the end of each boss fight, I do also show the build that I am using, because for each boss fight, I do modify the build, so it's not going to be exactly what we have here. For each boss fight, it's going to be a little bit different. Same with the weapon that I'm using. But if you're interested, just watch those. There's like 4 of them that I'm going to be showing. But anyways, I will catch you next time.
Summoning turret. I'll finish you off with this. Shields offline. Operating assault turret. finish you off with this. Assault turret activated. Turret engaged. Reactivation sequence. Assault turret activated. Bring it. Summoning assault turret. Shields up.